look at our second R, okay? So what we've done is this. We've done a quick review. Let me just pull up my slides. There you go. So what we've done is we've done a quick review, right? We've looked at what is the current financial health status, right? Whether you're healthy, unhealthy, right? Or you're unwell. And we said there are two reasons for that. One is a framework that you use, and the other one is the risks around your framework. So what are the strong habits that you have around that framework? We had to look at that. So if you're unhealthy or unwell, then what you need to do is this. You need to reframe, right? We need to reframe the way you manage your expenses because every framework has a risk. So you need to reframe it. So let's look at a framework that we are talking about. This is a framework that we recommend to everyone to be able to track their finances. This is the framework. Income minus your savings, minus any insurance that you put aside, minus investments, minus expenses equals to the life choices that you have. So I say that again. Income minus savings, minus insurance, minus investments, minus expenses equals to your life choices. So this is a framework that we recommend to everyone to be able to track their finances, right? To ensure that they are managing your finances well, right? So let me just go a bit deeper dive here, right? Because for each of this, there are some principles involved, right? And these are some of the principles that we talk about. When we share about income, what we tell people is this, right? Yes, income comes from different sources, right? But job is not the only source of income. So instead of just looking at job security, focus also on skill security, right? Look for different ways and means of being able to earn a higher level of income all the time. So even if you are employed in an organization, the question is, how can you develop more skills? How can you develop your expertise? How can you be really good at what you do so that people will be coming to you and asking for your services in that sense, right? So focus on that. Savings, what we always tell people is this, always pay yourself first, right? Every time we're always so excited about wanting to pay everybody else, right? But we don't pay ourselves. So one of the most important habits to start off with is always pay yourself, whether it's 10% at a minimum, right? Whatever salary you have, pay yourself first, right? I was talking to a friend of mine who has just graduated. He's a young man, right? He graduated from university a few years ago. So he came up to me and said, no, he wants to be able to manage his finances. And he said he wants to pay off all his student loans because he's taken loans to pay for his studies, right? So he told me he wants to pay off all his student loans. So I said, that's fine, that's good. And then he told me what are all his expenses he had. So I looked at it and told him, you know what? It seems to me that you're very excited about paying everybody else but yourself, right? Then he looked at me and said, what do you mean by that? He said, pay yourself first, right? You're the most important person, regardless of how much you earn, right? If at a minimum, you must always save for yourself 10%, right, of your salary. So I've shared this in many sessions. In one session, one lady was telling me how to save 10%. I don't even have enough money. All my money is going out for all my expenses. I don't have enough money for 10% to save. I said, okay, I hear you. So the question I had for her was this. Assuming if your boss came up to you now and said, for the next 12 months, right, I have to cut your salary by 10%, but you will have a job. You will have a job, but I need to cut your salary by 10%. Would you be able to live with 90% of your salary? Can you look at all your expenses and think about what are the expenses you don't need? So she started thinking about it and said, yeah, actually, I can. I can cut down some of my expenses. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you start looking at what are your expenses that you have that you don't need, try and do an audit, there's another habit you can start, right? Look at all your expenses, and then that's how you can create a 10% savings for yourself. Yes, and insurance is important because in the event, for whatever reason, right, if you lose your income due to death or maybe a major illness or so that you can't work anymore, right? You have expenses to meet. You got a family to take after. Insurance pays out that amount, right? So insurance is good. And again, how much should you set aside? Not more than 15%, but it can be lesser. That's fine. And in investment is also an important aspect to look into, like what's Nas said earlier in the chat, right? Investments are important. We have to look at how we can increase your savings rate. For example, right? Just now you said that the savings rate is less than 0.1% or 0.5% or so, right? But what is your inflation? So how much should you be setting aside, and how can you put aside for investment to beat the inflation? So that's another habit you need to create, right? And for expenses, the concept in expenses is to live below your means, is to live below your means. So even if you look at expenses, you can look at setting aside, maybe if you have taken up any loans or so, right? Maybe putting aside only 30% for loans, right? And looking at what are your fixed expenses and variable expenses. Because some of us already have fixed expenses, whether it's a loans that you're not only loans, but maybe looking after your family, your children, your parents or so. So there are certain fixed expenses and there are variable expenses. So these are some of the guidelines that you can look into as you go through this framework. So this is a framework, right? Income minus savings, minus insurance, minus investment, minus expenses equals to life choice. All right. So a quick question I have here, right? Borakia. Did I get the pronunciation right? Borakia. Is that the right pronunciation? All right, no worries. Quick question to everyone here. You can put in the chat group, or you can come off the mute. Do you find this framework simple to use?
Yep, I think that the framework simple and straightforward, what I can see.
Say that again. You find this to be simple and straightforward.
Simple and straightforward.
Yes. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it is. Yeah. So when I also say, yes, it is simple, it is straightforward, it's something for us to follow, right? To be able to look at an income and say, okay, this is what we need to set aside. This is how we need to track it. Yes. There's a reason why this framework was created to be simple. Okay. It is simple, but it is not simplistic. Okay. Simplistic will be something like income minus expenses equals to savings, or income minus savings equals expense. That's simplistic. Simple, right, is to be able to capture all the important essence of it. But the most important part about why this is simple, right, is to give you the confidence to say, you know what? It's simple, it's straightforward. I can do it. After today is November 5th. I can start managing my finances using this simple framework. So it's like building a muscle. So when it is simple, when you look at it and say, you know what, I can do this. I can do this. I have the confidence to do it. I can arrange my finances in this way, right? So it's building a muscle. And as you're building a muscle, right, it takes a short, small steps, but slowly but surely you will become better and better and more confident. So that's the reason why this framework was built, to make it simple for everyone, to give them the confidence to build the right habits. So which then brings us to our third R, reset. So the first thing we did was we said, let's review what is your current financial health status. Is it healthy? Is it unwell? Or is it unhealthy? Right? And once you have done that, we said, okay, regardless of whatever your financial health status is, we need to review. And for that, we introduce you to a framework to be able to manage your finances. Now we are saying, let's get into the next step. We need to reset the habits that we need to have, right? We need to reset the habits that we need to have. So when I mention the word habits, does it sound simple or hard to you? You can type it on the chat. Is it simple or hard?
It's hard.
It's hard. Okay. All right. Okay. And what's the reason you say it's hard, ma'am?
Because it's been there for so long. So we already get used to it.
Okay.
So to change just a little bit, it would take a lot of willpower, effort, and daily consistent towards it.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, because what you're saying is this: it is hard, but it can be done, but it needs to have consistent practice behind it you have to take daily actions also. That's what you're saying, right? It is hard.